Here's the truth about lies. They almost never slip by without leaving a trace. No matter how smooth her words sound, her body always betrays her. Maybe it's the quick dart of her eyes, the sudden dryness in her throat, or the way her hands fidget like they have a mind of their own. Those signals aren't random. They're the nervous system screaming what the mouth is trying to bury. The problem is, most men ignore them. They want so badly to believe her story that they blind themselves to the evidence right in front of them. And that blindness costs more than they realize. It costs time, respect, and emotional strength. But it doesn't have to. Today, you're going to see the 10 signs that pierce straight through the act. Because once you understand these cues, you'll never see her the same way again. As a psychologist and relationship coach, I've worked with countless men who spent years trapped in webs of lies, all because they dismissed the tiny red flags. That's why I created this breakdown, for the men who are ready to finally spot the truth. So hit that subscribe button, give this video a quick like, and drop your experience in the comments. What was the one moment that made you realize something wasn't adding up? Your story might be the wake-up call another man needs. And in just a second, I'm going to reveal the first sign, the one that hides in plain sight every time. Number 1. Inconsistent stories. One of the clearest signs a woman is lying is when her stories don't line up. Female psychology shows that truth is easy to remember because it comes from experience, but lies are fragile because they must be invented, maintained, and performed. When she tells you something that happened, every time she recalls it, the details should remain mostly the same. But when the story shifts, when one version says she was with a friend and another says she was alone, when one moment it was late at night and the next it was after work, those cracks reveal the strain of fabrication. Inconsistencies often start small. At first, it might be as minor as forgetting a detail, and she may quickly try to cover it up with a laugh or a casual excuse. But what you're really seeing is the mind struggling to keep track of invented details. Female psychology teaches us that a lie has no solid foundation. It must constantly be patched, corrected, and adjusted to fit the moment. The truth doesn't require those adjustments. It stays steady because it doesn't need maintenance. The inconsistencies don't only appear in words, they show up in timing as well. A woman who is lying might change the sequence of events, reorder how things happened, or avoid mentioning certain parts altogether. If you pay close attention, you'll notice the timeline doesn't add up. She might say she left a place at one time, but something else she said contradicts that. These cracks aren't random. They are the product of her subconscious trying to hold the story together while her conscious mind scrambles to convince you. Another layer of inconsistency comes when you ask her to retell the same story later. A woman speaking the truth doesn't need to rehearse, so her story flows naturally every time. But a woman lying will subtly change details, not because she wants to, but because she cannot keep fiction perfectly consistent. Female psychology shows that the more details a liar invents, the harder it becomes to hold them steady. And that's why lies often unravel over time. Number 2. Over-explaining or under-explaining. When a woman is lying, the way she shares information often swings to extremes. Female psychology shows that dishonesty creates internal tension, and this tension leaks out through her communication style. Sometimes she will flood you with details, giving an overwhelming amount of unnecessary information. Other times she will do the opposite, say as little as possible, offering vague or clipped answers. Both behaviors serve the same purpose, to distract you from the truth. Over-explaining is her attempt to sound believable. She feels that if she adds layer upon layer of explanation, you will have no reason to doubt her. For example, instead of a simple answer like, "I was out with friends," she may launch into a long speech about who was there, what they wore, what they ordered, and how late the night went. At first, it might seem like she's just being talkative, but in reality, the unnecessary detail is a shield. Female psychology recognizes this as overcompensation, a way to cover insecurity with excess. Under-explaining, on the other hand, is her way of minimizing risk. By giving you the bare minimum, she reduces the chance of getting caught in a contradiction. She might answer in vague phrases like, "I was busy," or "It's nothing important," and quickly try to change the subject. The less she says, the less there is to challenge. This avoidance can feel like indifference, but it's actually calculated silence meant to protect the lie. What makes this behavior so revealing is that it doesn't align with natural communication. Honest people share information fluidly, without thinking about how much or how little to say. But when someone is lying, they are hyper-aware of their words, carefully measuring them to either overwhelm or withhold. These extremes are not random. They are signals of hidden motives, and if you listen closely, you will notice how unnatural they sound. Number 3. Shifting eye contact. Eye contact has always been one of the most revealing signals when it comes to honesty, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Female psychology shows that when a woman is lying, her relationship with eye contact often shifts unnaturally. Most people believe liars always look away, avoiding your gaze out of guilt. While that does happen, the opposite can be just as telling. Some women, when lying, will stare too directly, holding eye contact in an exaggerated way, as if they are trying to convince you of their innocence through force. Avoidance of eye contact is usually rooted in discomfort. When she knows her words are not aligned with the truth, her subconscious may push her to glance down, look away, or focus on something else in the room. These micro-escapes are the mind's way of seeking relief from the tension between what is spoken and what is real. The moment you ask a direct question and her eyes shift away before she answers, you're watching the psychology of avoidance in action. But the other extreme is just as dangerous to ignore. Some women understand that people associate dishonesty with looking away, so they overcompensate by locking eyes too intensely. The gaze becomes stiff, rehearsed, and unnatural. Instead of the relaxed and organic eye contact that comes with genuine conversation, you feel like she's forcing it, watching you carefully to see if you believe her. This is not confidence. It's performance. Another layer of this signal comes from timing. Eye contact patterns that change suddenly within a conversation often mean she is switching between truth and deception. When she's comfortable in telling the truth, her gaze feels natural. But the moment the topic shifts to something she wants to hide, her eyes behave differently. This sudden inconsistency is not random. It's a psychological leak that reveals the struggle between honesty and fabrication. Number 4. Defensive body language. When a woman is lying, her words may sound smooth, but her body often betrays her. Female psychology shows that the body reacts instinctively to stress, and lying is one of the most stressful acts a person can perform. This is why defensive body language becomes a strong signal of hidden dishonesty. She may not even realize she's doing it, but her subconscious will push her into small, protective actions that reveal the truth. One of the most common signs is crossing the arms or legs. While this can sometimes be a simple posture of comfort, in the context of a difficult conversation, it signals a barrier. Her body is literally shielding itself, creating a wall between you and her. This instinct often comes out when she feels cornered by a question, or when she knows her answer isn't genuine. The arms crossed are not just about comfort. They are a physical manifestation of resistance. Another form of defensive body language is distancing. When telling the truth, people tend to lean in, engage, and connect naturally. But when lying, the subconscious pulls away. You might notice her sitting back, shifting her chair slightly, or placing an object like a phone or cup between you and her. These are not random movements. They are psychological defenses designed to create space and reduce pressure. Facial tension is another giveaway. A woman hiding the truth may force a smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. The muscles around her jaw or forehead may tighten, showing stress her words cannot cover. Micro-reactions such as lip biting, fidgeting with jewelry, or constantly touching her hair are small but powerful cues of unease. Defensive body language isn't about one single movement. It's about the shift. If her posture was relaxed moments before and suddenly it becomes guarded as soon as a sensitive question arises, you are watching the unconscious truth reveal itself. Number 5. Changing tone or pace of speech. When a woman lies, her voice often gives her away before her words do. Female psychology shows that speech patterns are closely tied to emotional states, and dishonesty creates an internal tension that leaks through vocal changes. Even if her words sound convincing, the tone, speed, and rhythm of delivery often betray the truth hiding underneath. One of the clearest signs is a sudden shift in tone. A woman who normally speaks with a steady and natural voice may suddenly sound higher-pitched or strained when answering a question she doesn't want to face. The rise in pitch is not random. It's the product of stress tightening the vocal cords, a physical reaction her mind cannot fully control. To the listener, it comes across as nervousness, but at the core, it is the psychology of dishonesty shaping sound. Speed is another signal. Sometimes when she lies, her words may tumble out too quickly, as though rushing past the moment will reduce the risk of being caught. The rapid pace is her subconscious attempt to escape the discomfort of holding eye contact while fabricating a story. Other times the opposite occurs. She slows down unnaturally, pausing too often, carefully selecting words because her brain is working harder to create consistency where none exists. Truth flows naturally. Lies require calculation. Hesitation also reveals itself in filler words. Phrases like I mean, or you know, may appear more frequently. Not because she lacks vocabulary, but because she's buying time. The brain struggles to invent, monitor, and deliver a false story simultaneously, and the cracks appear in her speech patterns. The most telling clue is the contrast. When her tone and pace are consistent in normal conversation but suddenly shift around a sensitive question, that break is the moment you see the lie emerge. The words may say one thing, but the voice exposes the reality beneath. Number 6. Avoiding direct answers. One of the most revealing signs that a woman is lying is her inability to give direct answers. Female psychology shows that deception thrives in vagueness, and when pressed with a question that demands clarity, a liar often chooses to dodge rather than confront. Instead of saying yes or no, she may shift the conversation, laugh it off, or answer with something unrelated. The avoidance is not accidental. It is a defense mechanism designed to buy time and reduce the risk of exposure. When confronted, a truthful person responds quickly and clearly because truth requires no editing. A woman who is lying, however, is forced to calculate her words carefully. This calculation often shows itself in indirect responses. For example, if you ask her where she was last night, instead of answering directly, she might say, "Why do you always question me?" Or, "Don't you trust me?" Notice the switch. She is no longer addressing your question. She is shifting the focus back onto you. This is a form of psychological deflection. Humor is another tactic used to avoid direct answers. When a question feels threatening, she may laugh or make a playful comment to dismiss the seriousness of the moment. While it may seem lighthearted, it is often an attempt to diffuse tension without revealing the truth. Similarly, some women answer questions with more questions, forcing you to defend yourself instead of holding them accountable. This redirection is subtle, but it's a common tool in the psychology of lying. The key sign to notice is consistency. If she usually answers your questions directly in normal conversation, but suddenly becomes vague, defensive, or playful when the topic touches on something sensitive, that shift is not random. It is a deliberate attempt to avoid the clarity that honesty would naturally provide. The absence of a direct answer often speaks louder than the words she actually says. Number 7. Emotional disconnect. When a woman lies, her emotions and her words often fail to align. Female psychology shows that truth produces harmony between expression, tone, and body language. But lies create a disconnect that leaks through subtle contradictions. She may say something meant to reassure you, but her emotional state betrays a different reality. This mismatch is not just coincidence. It's the subconscious struggling to keep up with the conscious performance. One of the clearest signs of emotional disconnect is when her facial expressions don't match her words. She may insist she is calm, but her eyes flicker with tension. She might say she's happy, but her smile fades too quickly or appears forced, never reaching the eyes. These small fractures reveal what psychologists call leakage, where suppressed emotions escape in micro-moments before the mask is reapplied. Another layer of disconnect comes in her tone. A woman who is lying might use reassuring words, but her voice carries strain. For example, she might say, "I don't care, it's fine," but her tone is sharp or her pitch rises unnaturally, betraying irritation or defensiveness. The words attempt to present one reality, but the emotional undertone exposes another. This split is exhausting to maintain, which is why liars often stumble or grow frustrated when pressed. Behavior also reflects this emotional gap. A woman may claim indifference about a subject, yet her actions suggest the opposite. If she insists something doesn't matter but becomes visibly restless, fidgets excessively, or avoids eye contact, the inconsistency is glaring. In truth, emotions are harder to disguise than words, and even the most convincing liar cannot perfectly align the two. The emotional disconnect is powerful because it doesn't require you to catch her in an outright contradiction. It only requires you to notice when the feeling she projects does not match the words she speaks. Number 8. Sudden irritation or anger. When a woman is lying and feels her cover might be slipping, one of the strongest signals you will notice is a sudden burst of irritation or anger. Female psychology shows that this reaction is often less about genuine emotion and more about defense. Instead of calmly addressing the question or concern, she flips the script, making you feel guilty for even asking. The anger serves as a shield, designed to intimidate you into dropping the subject before the truth comes out. This reaction can feel disproportionate to the situation. A simple question such as, "Where were you?" or "Why didn't you answer?" can spark a heated response that feels out of place. Instead of a straightforward answer, you might hear accusations like, "Why are you always doubting me?" or "You don't trust me at all." The shift is sudden and dramatic, and it is meant to move the focus away from her and back onto you. In psychology, this is a form of projection, where the liar transfers the pressure onto the one who is seeking clarity. The irritation can also show up in body language. Raised eyebrows, sharp movements, exaggerated sighs, or rolling eyes are all ways of expressing frustration without giving answers. This visible annoyance often comes right when the lie is most vulnerable, because the subconscious knows the story is unstable. Anger becomes the escape route. Another layer of this response is emotional manipulation. By acting hurt or offended, she tries to make you feel that asking questions is wrong. This forces you into a defensive position, where instead of holding her accountable, you begin explaining yourself. It's a reversal of roles. The liar becomes the victim, and the one seeking the truth becomes the aggressor. The sudden irritation is rarely about the question itself. It is about the fear of exposure. That fear transforms into anger because anger is easier to display than guilt. Number 9. Overly detailed explanations. When a woman lies, one of the clearest giveaways is when her story suddenly becomes overloaded with details that don't actually matter. In female psychology, this is a classic defense mechanism known as overcompensation. Instead of giving a simple, direct answer, she feels the need to build an entire narrative, stacking it with names, times, places, and random observations that no one even asked for. On the surface, it may sound convincing, but underneath, it's a way of hiding the lie by drowning you in too much information. This happens because lying creates anxiety. The brain knows the truth is fragile, so it tries to reinforce it with excessive details, hoping that the added color will make it believable. For example, if you ask where she was last night, a truthful answer might be as simple as, "I was at Sarah's house." But if she's lying, the response may sound like, "I went over to Sarah's around 7:45. We ordered pizza, and her cousin came by unexpectedly. And then we watched this new show on Netflix until about 11:15, and then I left right after because I had to get up early." Notice how the story gets heavier with unnecessary elements, not to provide clarity, but to make you stop questioning. Another sign is how quickly these details come out. Instead of pausing to recall, she delivers the explanation like a rehearsed script. Lies often require practice, and the more details she adds, the easier it becomes for her to convince herself that the story is solid. But paradoxically, the very act of oversharing creates suspicion, because real truth doesn't need that much dressing. Overly detailed explanations also serve to overwhelm you. By giving more information than you asked for, she forces your attention to scatter. Instead of focusing on the core question, you become distracted by side details. This is deliberate, even if she doesn't realize it consciously. In psychology, it's called cognitive overload, and it works because it shifts your brain from analyzing the truth to processing random noise. The core issue here is that lies feel weak when kept simple, so she adds layers, hoping that more equals believable. But the very abundance of detail often signals the opposite. Number 10. Defensiveness when questioned. One of the strongest indicators that a woman is lying is how she reacts when her story is gently challenged. In female psychology, defensiveness often masks insecurity and fear of being exposed. Instead of calmly clarifying her side, she quickly shifts into a protective mode, raising her voice, flipping the blame back onto you, or acting insulted that you would even question her honesty. This reaction isn't rooted in confidence, but in the fear that her lie won't survive deeper scrutiny. When someone tells the truth, they usually welcome questions because the answers are already there. A woman who's lying, however, feels trapped the moment you probe further. The cracks in her story begin to show, so her instinct is to cover them up with an emotional shield. This is why defensiveness often appears louder and more dramatic than the issue itself. She may accuse you of being paranoid, controlling, or untrusting, all in an attempt to divert attention away from the fact that her words don't align with reality. Defensiveness also reveals itself in body language. She might cross her arms, avoid eye contact, or lean away as though creating physical distance from the conversation. Sometimes she will even laugh nervously or use sarcasm to minimize your concerns. But beneath it all, her reactions are about protecting the lie rather than engaging with the truth. It's not the questioning that bothers her, it's the possibility of being uncovered. Another layer of this pattern is how quickly defensiveness can escalate. A small, harmless question like, "Are you sure about that?" can spark an outsized response, as if you've accused her of the worst possible betrayal. That intensity doesn't match the situation unless something is being hidden. This mismatch between your tone and her reaction is one of the clearest psychological tells. Ultimately, defensiveness when questioned isn't just an emotional quirk, it's a survival tactic. Lies live in fragile territory, and when pressure is applied, the mind often lashes out to protect itself. The stronger the reaction, the weaker the truth behind it.